We still have a few minutes because I want to make sure that I'm going live on Instagram. Okay, looks like we are going live. We've lost Janine, so hopefully we can bring her back on stage. But hi everyone. Before I go officially live, I want to make sure I'm streaming on StreamYard. So let's just make sure because that's we also have an audience on StreamYard, and this is something I've always struggled with. You'll find it at the top of your feed on StreamYard. Okay, I don't know why it's this has been the bane of my experience on StreamYard. I can never seem to go. Yeah, see, I don't know why it does this. I was hoping to kill several birds with one stone and stream on all the Expat Woman platforms, but StreamYard does not like. I mean, Instagram does not like StreamYard. Anyway, okay. So welcome everyone to the Meet the Speakers session with me, Naina Kaputi. I have three of my speakers joining us today for this LinkedIn video event on the Expat Woman Show. My name is Naina Kaputi. I'm the founder and CEO of the Expat Woman and also the host and organizer of the upcoming the Expat Woman Summit. We have 20 incredible speakers joining us from across the globe, expat leaders, influencers, and experts. And some of you might have joined the LinkedIn audio event we hosted, I believe, maybe it was last week, and heard from some of our speakers. And today we have some of them joining us on video. So I'm really excited to uh, have you hear from them. So today I'm going to have my speakers briefly introduce themselves and tell us what the topic is, where they live, where they're originally from, because they all have interesting expat journeys. And if you're joining us in the audience, let us know in the comments where you're calling in from, and if you have signed up for the Expat Woman Summit. So go ahead. I'm going to just call your names out right now, so this goes easier. Solveiga, go ahead.
Oh, and my first one. So my name is Solveiga. I'm originally from Lithuania, but my name is Norwegian. Sol means sun and Veig means path. I'm very grateful to Naina for this opportunity to be a part of this group, and I cannot wait for the event because I will be talking on the topic how employers can make the workplace more inclusive for international employees. And this topic is truly personal for me because it took me some time to establish myself as an HR professional. I came to the United States more than 20 years ago, and that was quite a journey. So I hope that my presentation will inspire you and provide resources how you can help somebody else in their journeys going through transition, and also how you can help organizations to be more inclusive. So this is a little about me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Solveiga, for joining us. And I'm actually meeting Solveiga virtually for the first time. I can actually see your face. You joined us on audio last week, and that's what I love about the Expat Woman community and these live streams. It brings us all together, even though we are in different parts of the world. I mean, three of us today are in the US, but a lot of our speakers are outside of it. So I'll have Janine go next. Go ahead, Janine.
Okay, hello everyone. As you can see, Janine Sonsi is my name. I've got my title there as founder of Expat Women in France, which is my Facebook group, which I started almost 5 years ago at the beginning of my expat immigrant journey. And but I'm also a coach, and I coach women leaders to break through their inner glass ceiling to achieve their potential. But my Facebook group is now up to nearly 17,000 women in it. Not all of them are in France. There's some just really like France, as I do, but I am living in France. I'm an Australian living in France. And I'm looking forward to I can't even speak now. I'm looking forward to the summit. It'll be fantastic.
Wonderful. And Naveen, sorry for keeping you backstage. I'm glad you sent me a message in the LinkedIn group, because you'd have been stuck backstage.
That's fine.
We're just in
Sitting
the
there like a good girl watching everybody.
I'll have Isabel introduce herself, and then we'll have you, Naveen. Basically, where you're from, what you do, your expat journey, and what you're going to be talking about at the summit. Go ahead, Isabel, and then you, Naveen.
Hi, everyone. So I'm originally from France, and I think, Janine, I'm part of your expat. I'm part of a group because I was curious about it. It's very active. I recommend it.
Yes, it is very active.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
I'm originally from France, and I've lived 23 years outside of France, in Switzerland, the UK, Canada, and now the US. I live close in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a career and leadership coach, and specifically, I help multicultural leaders and professionals, including a lot of expat women, who are often want to bring more passion and meaning into their career and leadership. Often people who have been successful, maybe climbed the ladder, but realizing, oh, I'm not happy. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, instead of what I really want to do. And I help them come back to who they are and what are their superpowers, so that they can shine in their careers and leadership. And at the summit, I'm gonna speak about how to harness the power of the Enneagram to unlock your full leadership potential. So I don't know if you know about the Enneagram. I'm gonna talk about it's a very powerful tool that can help you come back to really who you are, your unique superpowers, your gift, and also what is your path of growth as an expat woman. And I find that in my experience, when we are expat or multicultural, going back to knowing clearly who we are, what are our superpowers, all of this really help us navigate the cultures around us. So if we and know how to be more empowered in our careers and leadership, and this is really what I'm gonna talk about in my presentation. And by the way, it's for everyone, whether you manage a team or you lead an organization or not. It's really for the leader inside of you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naveen. Lovely to meet you all online. Isabel, I've been introduced to the Enneagram before, and it is a very powerful tool. I've just really just very basic, so I'm going to be very interested to hear, what you're going to share. I've been an expat now for over 24 years. I've lived in 8 countries, born and raised in Australia to Egyptian parents. I'm also Egyptian. And then moved to Egypt, where I got married. And with my husband's company, we just moved around everywhere. We were in Europe most of the time. So we lived in France, the UK, Switzerland. We lived in Saudi Arabia. We lived in the States. And we went back to Switzerland again. And now I'm in Dubai. I have 4 kids, each one born in a different country. So you can imagine what that's like with the paperwork every time you move. A nightmare. I'm also the founder of a community called Coffee with an Expat here in the UAE. And that's what my talk will be about. I was on a panel discussion talking about building community with Janine. We did that discussion last night. Very juicy, so I'm not going to say anything about it. But it's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to the summit, and just thank you, Nina, for putting this together. And really, really looking forward to everybody's journeys and stories.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Yeah, no, it's been amazing bringing all of you together, and getting a chance to meet some of you through these virtual events. Like Naveen said yesterday, I had the recording of the panel discussion with Naveen, Janine, and Charlotte, who all run very successful expat women communities, and just got to know all of you so much better. And then excited to also listen to each of your presentations and share them with everyone who signed up. So the topic or the theme of the Expat Woman Summit is Inspire Inclusion, focused on finding community belonging and empowerment abroad. And I decided on this theme because it is during Women's History Month, during International Women's Day, and that is the theme for International Women's Day. And for me, and I know for many of you, I'm sure who've moved to another country, inclusion is a big part of it, right? Feeling like you're included especially if you don't look like the people, you don't sound like them, you're not familiar with the local language, and also the social environment. So I'm going to have each of you share any maybe one challenge you faced. Let's start with belonging. Like one challenge you faced when you moved to a new country and faced some kind of hurdle when it came to feeling like you belonged, of not feeling like, I mean, feeling like an outsider really. And then with that challenge, how were you able to overcome it? Like, did you do something to help you overcome it, or you wish you had done that when you first moved, to help you feel like you were not a foreigner or an outsider? So I'm just going to have each of you unmute yourself and maybe just raise your hand so everyone knows you're speaking, and then so we can have like a conversation instead of me always jumping in. I want this to be like flowing. And for those who are joining us in the audience, we're streaming this on YouTube, in our Facebook groups, on our Facebook page, on our LinkedIn page, on our YouTube channel, and I know some of our speakers are streaming it as well. Anyone streaming it right now on any of their pages or groups? Or you didn't have, no one's had a luck with streaming it? Because I just want to encourage whichever channel. And Naveen, you can stream this right now
Okay.
on any of your groups. So you don't have to be a subscriber of StreamYard. But I just want to encourage people in the audience again to comment and let us know if you faced any types of not feeling like you belonged, and how did you overcome it, or also let us know where you're calling in from. So I'm going to mute myself and have each of you just speak, and feel free to feed off each other's conversation.
Okay, so maybe I'll start if you don't mind. So maybe my challenge, I would say, concerning belonging, didn't really start when I became an expat. It actually started from childhood. Being born and raised in Australia, at the time as well, it was not as diverse as it is today. I did struggle to belong, because my parents, when they immigrated, they were like one of the first generation of Egyptians and Muslims at that as well to move to the country. And they brought with them, obviously, a very strong culture. And they wanted to keep that culture as alive as possible at home, which meant at home we were very Egyptian, and practicing Muslims. But then I'm going to a Christian school, and spending most of my time, with Christians, with Australians, from people from other backgrounds, which made it quite challenging, because I felt like my parents were very protective. They were not really so sure about the Australian culture, and I think they struggled quite a bit to integrate deeply. And so that just meant that, I was living in two worlds. So at school, I was a person; at home, I'm a different person, and then I couldn't really fit in either. And I didn't actually realize that until I was much older, actually. The challenges that I was facing growing up in Australia. And I think that's probably what helped me along the way when I became an expat to adapt faster, I think. So I didn't really struggle as an expat so much with belonging. But I would say that's really where, my challenges with belonging, started.
I love that you bring the topic of belonging from the beginning, Navina, because I feel like maybe we all have different versions of what it means to belong. Mm-hmm. And for me, you had me think about, it's interesting because it's actually, there is another form of belonging when in my French culture, it kind of started in my French culture as well in some ways. When I was, even if my situation is different than yours, but I feel like in school or in the community I was in, looking back, it was harder for me to be my full self, meaning, school in France emphasizes a lot what is more intellectual and rational. And so I fit into that, but this is not who I was. I was more someone with emotional intelligence, intuition, and all of these things. But looking back, I realized I didn't know where to fit in the French culture. So in some ways, I think I left to go in another country to find myself. And being in Canada and the US has kind of helped me do a journey back to my true self, where I was able to find myself through different ways, even if it was in different cultures. I think there were cultures that were speaking to a part of me, the part of me that wanted to be free, to be who I was instead of fitting in a box. And so I'm really grateful for this culture to have helped me do that. And also the belonging for me was about doing work that was meaningful, because when I moved to the US, I worked in tech for a while for Yahoo. And I was, it was great. I love my coworkers. It was very innovative, but I feel I didn't fit in fully because I couldn't really use some of my natural gift and talents that I had to identify. And by changing careers and do what I do now, I did a journey back to myself. And this, in a way, helped me to also adjust to the different cultures around me, including, strangely, my French culture. So it's a bit different story that I'm sharing about belonging, but I find there is so many facets to look at it. So I hope it's helpful as well.
Thanks, Isabel. I'll go next, since I've done the reverse of what you've done. So I was actually an expat in my late 20s, because I'm Australian, and I went and did the working holiday visa thing in England and lived there for 3 years on a 2-year working holiday visa, working full time, and bought an apartment with my then husband with a 95% mortgage. So I sort of fitted in really quite well there, and language is the same. But I always loved France. It was like I had a calling to come and live in France. And it was there, for half my life. And it'd been my 5-year plan for 10 years. And I finally did it when I was 58. I got my visa to work here and moved over here. I was moving over on my own, but I moved over with my boyfriend. At the time, decided to come with me, and he was going to study here, but that didn't work out, as in his study didn't work out, so we went back to Australia. The advantage was that he was Mauritian and spoke fluent French, so that made it a lot easier for me to settle in, because I would say my biggest hurdle was and is the language. Luckily, I'm on the Côte d'Azur, which has a lot of expats, immigrants, and a big English-speaking community, and lots of English-speaking French people as well, which has allowed me to integrate at least better. I'll always be a foreigner. I mean, I'm not. I want French citizenship, but I'm not anticipating that the French will ever consider me as French, even though I've been told I have a reasonably good accent, but just limited vocabulary. Now, how did I get around that? By actually deciding I wanted to create a community for English-speaking women in France. And so that's why I created the group Expat Women in France. And my aim was to take that through to a paid membership community, but that didn't work out for a couple of reasons, which you'll hear more about in our panel presentation. So, but that was the way I integrated here, because it was through my group that I met many women and made friends. And I know there's many, many women who have joined my group and have made friends, like real life friends in it, as well as just being able to communicate and ask questions and get answers. So I think joining a group, and in particular a local group, and although there's women from around the world in Expat Women in France, so yeah, but join in internations, local groups, whatever you can do, meetups, join in and meet people. That's the way to go.
Wow, I just enjoyed listening each of you, because everyone, you what you told me, I can relate of every single of your story. Because when I came to the States more than 20 years ago, I struggled with so many different aspects of belonging, but your language was a big one, because at the time I thought my English is quite good, but other people didn't think that. And so we frequently, our conversation ended very fast, and we'll say, "Oh, I don't understand you," and sometimes people walk away, or we were not interested in continuing conversation with me. Like, I would go to the interviews, and sometimes my interviews would end after the first question, and sometimes it was hard. I felt like I will never belong here. And because I was working very hard, and I couldn't still see the progress, and it was painful. And for a long time, I felt uncomfortable being in the room where I was the only one whose English was not native. Now it's opposite. I feel good if I'm in the room where I'm the only one who speaks non-native language, because I know that I can bring a different perspective. And yet it took me years. I think it doesn't happen, all at once. I think what it helped me the most, first, stop paying attention what other people think, and concentrating on my own progress, and stop comparing myself to others. Even now, like, if I compare myself of native speakers, I see how imperfect I sound. But when I compare myself where I was a year ago or 20 years ago, then I can see the progress. So I think for anybody who's an immigrant expatriate, I think we cannot compare ourselves to somebody who grew up here. It's not fair comparison, and then we become too hard on ourselves, and then we shouldn't be. We should really celebrate our success and be kind to ourselves in the middle of a journey, because then otherwise we may stop in the middle, we will fail and not get up. So for us to continue that journey, that it can be really hard and challenging, we have to be first kind to ourselves. And secondly, like, when I came, I made a big mistake. I was working very hard myself, but I was not asking for help. And I see the big difference is when you start asking for other people for help. And now, like, I tell everybody, first, start think as an immigrant, or think as, somebody from another country. You need to start thinking how people in this country will behave, how they will answer question. And being, humble sometimes doesn't take you far away. You have to start selling yourself, but also asking for help, and getting different type of helpers. Get somebody who will be an expert in the field, somebody who will help you with interviews, somebody who will introduce you to others that can lead to a job opportunity, somebody maybe who will become your friend in the middle of a journey. And also, it's really beautiful to start helping others. When I start helping other immigrants and other people from other backgrounds, I've realized how much value I can bring, because I bring the same expertise, and it helped me to develop friendships, and it developed, basically led where I am today. So for everybody else, I say, when you come to the new country, you still can help. You can help others, and you need to ask for help.
Wow, that was very powerful, Solvik. I mean, all of you shared really powerful stories of how you felt like an outsider, or what, how you overcame it. But some of the so let's start with Naveen, because I know uh, many people have to live two different lives, and you said, as you said, it started even before you were an adult, right? And I think that's an issue with a lot of third culture kids, even kids who are born. I know in the US, kids who are born of to immigrant parents, right? And then they at home they speak just one language, and then at school they speak another language. They focus on their culture at home, but then they have to live this different life at school. And but I think that really makes you more resilient and open to diversity and stepping out of your comfort zone. Janine, you were talking about how even though the UK was more because it's, I guess, Australia is an extension of the UK in some ways, except maybe for the accent. You still chose France because you felt that calling, even though you don't belong there. And I thought it was interesting. You said you have your citizenship, but you still feel, that you'll never be 100% French, and I think that's something we just, I'm a US citizen, but if you don't sound American or you don't look like the traditional American, which is still considered Caucasian, then people will always think like you don't belong. Because the other day I had a talk with a woman who's born in the US. She's black, and she was telling me how in the US, being black, she's considered not American, but when she goes abroad, the minute people hear her speak with her American accent, they say, "Oh, you're from the US." So she says it's more for her. She finds more belonging abroad because people then identify her as an American. So it's also a lot of preconceived notions, right? What an American looks like, what they sound like. And Isabel, again, you shared about how you found belonging also by finding your passion and unlocking your potential, because you was with Yahoo, but I think when you started doing your own work, and I've seen the progress, and your growth over the last few years since we've been connected. And I know you have some interesting things to share, which I'm not going to announce now. I'm sure in the future we'll all learn your plans, and then I'd love to question you about that, your new journey and your new plan, and what inspired you to go back there. And then Solvega, I'm sorry, my phone is beeping over here. Solvega, you shared a lot of things that I think I faced when I came here. The first job I applied for in the US, I didn't get hired because the woman didn't like my accent. I was way more qualified for the job, but all she heard was my accent. So she did not hire. I heard from a third party that's why she didn't hire me, and that really affected me, feeling like I'm going to belong here. Like even now, sometimes when I'm a group of American accented people, I find it hard to ask a question because I don't want to stand out. I want to belong. Even if they're people who are very diverse, but they all have grown up in the US, so they're all American, I feel like, oh my gosh, if I speak, then I'm not going to fit in with everyone. I'm going to stand out as this foreigner. So it's, but at the same time, as you said, we shouldn't compare ourselves to people who've grown up here and their accents or their experiences, right? It's what you can contribute, and look, and really how you have grown since you first came here. And again, I know there are accent coaches who help people strip their accents. And when I first heard about that, when I first came to the US, I was like, my gosh, that's terrible. Who our accent is our identity and where we come from, and these people are making you strip your accent to sound American. I found that kind of really weird. So I just think you have to own who you are. People who don't like your accent, it's their loss. That woman didn't hire me. I would have done wonders for her company. So it's her loss, but that led me to form the Expat Woman. So, Naveen, you want to say something?
No, just saying, I love that, and it's true. It is their loss because they are missing out on all the experience and the diversity that you can bring, right? And all the knowledge and the internationalism that you bring with you. And it's funny actually that you're talking about this, about America and accents, because I'm wondering if this is a bit more unique to the Americans. Because when I was living in America, my accent was a big deal, and that was my first time that I actually felt like I had an accent, but to turn it around, I actually was invited very early on in my journey there by my neighbor. She was very kind and she wanted to invite me to meet her friends so I can start making friends. And they started talking, like we're having coffee, and they started talking. And I swear to you, I could not understand a single thing they were saying. I just couldn't. I don't know if it was their accent, if it was the terminology they were using. I was just nodding my head and I was smiling the whole time. And I went home like, were they speaking English? I'm sure they're speaking English. But yes, I mean, like in America, I felt like every time I spoke, it was like a novelty. People asked me to read just so they can hear my accent. I was like, it's like so weird. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Right. Yeah, go ahead, Janine.
I was going to say, I think it's viva la différence. Like let's celebrate our difference. Who wants to be the same as everybody else? And integrate, yes, but you don't have to be the same. And then if you find these people like this woman who couldn't cope with your accent, but maybe it wasn't that she didn't like your accent, but she struggled to understand you, and she thought, wow, that would be really difficult for us to work with someone who we can't understand. It might have been coming from that perspective rather than an actual racist perspective. But I think, really appreciate our differences. And I guess I have an advantage now being on the Côte d'Azur, which is like an absolute melange of everything. You know, so many different cultures and nationalities and everything else that, you know, okay, an example, I had a birthday party, not this year, but the last year. And I think 14 people from, what was it, 8 different countries, 9 different countries. So, you know, I'm lucky in that environment. I'm sure Dubai is very similar, Naveen, with the total melange, but it's, yeah, don't feel you have to be the same. Be prepared to stand out. It's great.
Thanks. Yeah, the Côte d'Azur, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Sounds amazing. Definitely have to check it out. Yeah, no, it may have been racism, it may have been something else, but I think, you know, San Francisco's pretty diverse. So to me, it was very surprising. It's, you know, it's one thing if it was in, you know, the Midwest or somewhere where mostly everyone is American. So it was just, and I grew up speaking English. So for me, it was very insulting not being hired, you know, because I speak, you know, perfect English, and uh, I don't think I'm hard to understand. So just, it's really some people's mindsets, you know, but and some people, I know, I work with a lot of women here in the US, and sometimes they feel that didn't get the promotion, or they didn't, you know, get the client, or they're not getting speaking opportunities because they don't sound like the rest. And there's a lot of work being done, and I'm sure in other countries too, with like diversity, equity, and inclusion. But there's less of it with immigrants. I know only 2 employee resource groups in all the companies that I'm connected with actually have a group for immigrants. Mostly they'll have like Asian Pacific Islanders or Hispanics, you know. So I'm hoping things will change, because I think immigrants, no matter where we come from, we have similar challenges, especially with sense of belonging. But let's continue with because I also wanted to talk about community before we end this conversation. And I know Janine and Naveen, we spoke
I would say one more thing.
extensively about community yesterday, but so we won't talk. So I'll try and you know, the questions a little different, because we won't talk about creating your own community, but you know, finding community when you move abroad. Like, you know, what was a challenge you faced? Because it is lonely initially when you move. So for people listening or watching the recording, I know that was a big question. You know, it always comes up when I talk to expat women, is like, because you've left everything that you're familiar with, your family, your friends, and when you're struggling with, you know, navigating a new country, you want to find people. So what were your struggles, and what was something you did? Again, I'm just going to have people unmute and go. Maybe if you want to raise your hand, or just people who see you unmuting, go ahead.
Oh, it's interesting for me, and something I shared last time, but that was really powerful for me coming to the US as a single woman, because I think it's also important. There is different family situation we are in, whether we have family and kids or partners, or if we are single. I think that also changed a little bit some of the things. And for me, I arrived in the US as a single woman. I had just, you know, we had broken up with my partner, was still in Canada, in Montreal. And so I was going through that, you know, emotional transition. And arriving in the US, you know, working for Yahoo, I was also a bit intimidated. Like, I was working for one of the, you know, biggest, you know, company in the world at the time in tech, and for Yahoo search. So there was a lot of smart people. So I have also my own imposter, you know, imposter syndrome inside of me, even if you know, they accepted me. So I was part of it. So this was going on, and being part of. And I think for me, the community aspect was also coming from one of the challenge, as I described before, is that I feel in tech, I didn't fully belong. Like, I love, you know, what I was doing in user experience research, helping people, but the tech aspect of it was not a passion for me. So I didn't feel like I fully belong, also because of that. And the first few years were kind of challenging outside of work. I had things, but outside of work, it was kind of empty. I was sometimes spending the weekend by myself, and was quite painful, I remember. And what has helped me over time is finding my passion, and go back to what I said before, but finding my passion and realizing, oh, I love personal growth. I love self-discovery. I love doing work on myself, and finding communities of people who had the same passion. So even if we were from different cultures, there was a common language. We were speaking about stuff that we were excited about. And this helped me find a form of belonging where I could feel, oh, I belong here. Even if, because I think there is different level of belonging. There is the culture, there is the accent, and there is also who you are and how do you orient toward the world. So this was a way for me to find belonging in the US. Because I was also very mindful. I was afraid of staying only with French people and ending up being, people who live in another country, but they are only with their people. So I was trying to shy away from French people at the beginning. So it was a kind of a challenge, but that, supported me in finding my way in. And now I think what has really been helpful is being around other multicultural expat people, immigrants, like among you, because I feel like, oh, we have the similar perspective on life. Mm-hmm. And I find also my family this way. So I think it's very important.
I'll go next again after Isabel. And we need to talk, Isabel. We've got so much in common, actually.
I look forward to it.
But I want to say that, so within my group, Expat Women, we have many French women who have gone and lived in other countries and come back to France and felt like they didn't fit in, which I find really interesting, because they've sort of, once you've gone and lived in another country, you have a broader view of the world. And when you come back to your own country and the people possibly you grew up with and your family, they still have the same small view of the world that you had before you left. So it's not just about the language and being and the nationality. And as you said, Isabel, it's where do you feel you belong? And I just feel I belong in France. I don't have this sense of, oh, I don't belong here at all. There's things I don't fit in with and things that frustrate me that Isabel would be well aware of, with French bureaucracy and banks and things. And it is like going back to last century. Seriously, they still use checks here, paper checks, like, for God's sake. And there's so many things that are just a little bit backward. But you just deal with it when you know you belong. I think that's the difference. When you're committed to being there, you overcome it. You're resilient and you're tolerant. I think that makes a big difference. Resilience and tolerance.
Oh. I'm glad to hear you feel belonging in France. It makes my heart happy.
That's good, Isabel.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you ladies talk, because the topic of belonging is a big one, right? It's very deep. And I agree with you, Isabel. It's like there's different forms of belonging. There's different layers of belonging as well. And I feel like as expats, and I suppose most of us travel quite a bit as well, is that for me personally, I learned that belonging, as we all say, how I feel I belong somewhere is a feeling. And I think if you manage to develop that feeling of belonging within yourself, it doesn't matter where you are, because those different layers of belonging are going to be there everywhere, wherever you go, but just differently, depending on the country that you go to. Either you go to somewhere where you don't speak the language, so then that's going to be your challenge in that moment. Or it could be, that you're not, it's a different culture. So, I think I worked really hard on myself, because I moved around so much. And obviously having my 4 kids along the way, and again, facing all of the challenges that come with that. And then again, also my upbringing, I actually find that I thrive the most when I am amongst women like yourselves in a very diverse, dynamic environment, because then I feel like I'm like all of you. You know, we are all unique and we're all different in our own ways. We all belong in our own ways. And I think I think that was probably the benefit of what happened to me growing up in Australia, where I was belonging to two worlds, yet not belonging to either. That when I came to become an expat, I just felt like this is where I belong. I just belong to be amongst dynamic, diverse people and just be myself. So yeah, but in terms of finding community, um, again, I think you just have to. Well, I always make the effort to look for it. I like to create community. I'm like, this is why I create community. I just naturally do it either on a small scale or a larger scale or for different initiatives. But what I found, especially now with technology and the way we have access to on the online world, is to have that community for sure. Like find your communities online because that goes with you everywhere. So like the Expat Woman or Expat Women in France or whatever the groups are that suit your needs, and they can be multiple. Because sometimes it takes time to find your offline community, right? So that gives you a space to tap into, and I found that really helpful and important as well.
Again, I just love this group and discussion. I so much. So when I came to the United States, the first time I truly I found a group that I belong. It was I started working on refugee resettlement project, and we interviewed other refugees, and our team was very diverse because we interviewed people in their native languages. So my native language is Lithuanian, but I spoke Russian, so I interviewed refugees who spoke Russian. Somebody interviewed Vietnamese, Amharic, Serbo-Croatian, Arabic. So our team was 14 interviewers, were like really diverse. And we came from all around the world, and yet we connected so much because we all came from a different country. We all had struggles, adjusting here. And we are a team that we really helped each other out. And first of all, a fall of confidence as well. And this is where I found that no matter where you are, you have so much things in common because you have to adjust in a new country. And yet, like recently, I found that was so helpful for me to come to a working environment where I'm the only immigrant. And suddenly, first it felt strange because I always work for very diverse and international organizations, and suddenly I come to one organization where I'm the only immigrant. There are 160 employees, and all the students ask me if I'm new Spanish teacher because they hear an accent. This is DC, there are a lot of Spanish speakers, and suddenly, they think I'm a Spanish teacher. And this is where I thought, oh, this is going to be that, everybody, I'm the only one who's making mistakes. And when I realized the more mistakes I make, the more actually I'm myself and not even worried about my accent, not worried about mistakes, the more people like me. And suddenly when I went, I decided to teach a class about what it was like, basically about me. And I talked about what it was like to grow up in the Soviet Union. And the students really got into it. And what I didn't expect is that the students after that start stopping me in the corridor and saying, I started doing the research about your country. And I thought, how that cool is. The teacher said, like, you opened, the doors, the windows to the world, to the students. And this is where I saw actually how it's beautiful to be a different in a room because you bring some different perspective. And then I felt I belong here. I truly belong because it was beautiful. Suddenly, it's the first time I realized how beautiful to be different because everybody was asking questions. Suddenly, it became interesting for others just because of my different background. While I work for a very international and diverse organization, I was one of the many people from different backgrounds. And yes, so this is definitely, I can tell that, but it takes time to feel comfortable being very different in the room and being, saying, okay, this is who I am. And yes, I make mistakes, but I can bring a different perspective. And I totally agree that sometimes we need to find belonging in ourselves. Because if we know our value and we know what we stand for and we know, what we can bring for others, then we also see the beauty in difference.
Beautiful, all of you. I mean, powerful again. Janine, I'm envious that you found where you belong. I think I'm still searching for it. I mean, I love being in the US, but don't, I just feel like I'm in between two worlds. Like I have one leg in India and one here, and I'm in limbo. And I don't, when I go back to India, I think somebody mentioned, right? You outgrow your country because you've had experiences and, right? And so when you go back, I mean, I reconnect with my friends, but I don't feel I can live there. And then when I come back to the US, I miss India. So and I think Naveen also said, like, you started feeling like you belonged after your expat journey, like, so I think very happy for both of you. In terms, and Solvega, very interesting about what you just shared about the experiences you've had being the only foreigner, and then Isabel, you were talking about working in the corporate world, and I know we have a couple of talks about how to feel included when you work in the tech world, especially I think when it's very male dominated. I think Ileana will be talking on that subject. So for me, yeah, community is so important because I think I'm an introvert, but when I'm with people who think like me and who are excited about being with me, like, Solvega, you said when they actually want to know about you. And I think that might be partly the American culture with some Americans where, it's if you ask too many questions, you're considered nosy. So like I am sure they think I'm nosy because I want to know everything about a person when I meet them, because I feel that's how I get to their soul. And then, and then they don't ask me any questions in return. And it's like, gosh, I must have sounded so nosy, because in India, it's like we ask, there's the boundaries are fewer. So you ask everyone everything. I mean, people even will ask, like, oh, when you're getting married, when you're going to have a baby, when you're going to buy a house. But at the same time, there are people, I have met Americans who are very interested in knowing more about me and where I came from. And but again, as many of you mentioned, with the expat community, it's just the dynamics are different. And maybe because it's all of us have moved here from another country, so we are already stepped out of our comfort zone because we want to explore a new world. Some of us have come here by, I mean, I didn't expect to be an expat. I came here to study film, and then I met my husband here, and so I'm an accidental expat. So maybe it was also harder because I didn't plan to live in the US. I was all set to go back to India, and then it all just, I had just one suitcase of clothes, so it was very different. So my experience might be different, but I think it's that finding those people who are excited to be with you, and whether it's the locals or international people. And I also feel like doing volunteer work that lights you up, because you can make really good connections in community. You do work that, not just like, maybe serving in a soup kitchen is good, but maybe it will attract all kinds of people. But if you find things that are, uh, you're passionate about, will also bring other people. And then the last thing I wanted to add was, yes, I have the expat woman community, but like I live in a suburb of San Francisco, and most of my community lives in other parts of the local community. Like Isabel and she lives in Berkeley and I live in Concord. I mean, it's again, and you don't have that time to meet. But I decided there's so many things I want to do in my neighborhood, so I just created a little chapter here, so we can go to lunch together. And this is not even part of the expat community, it's got a mix of people, but I was just created this WhatsApp group and just ask people to add. So if there's a movie that I want to see, because my husband doesn't want to do a lot of these things, right? My kids, and I don't want to do them with my kids. So that's another tip. Just creating, it doesn't have to be an expat community. Just find people who, few, and I find I prefer to hang out with women. I obviously am married, so it's not like I want to hang out with women for other reasons, but I just, again, as many of you said, that you feel so much more comfortable. So that's another thing. Just find a few people, and you don't have to be best friends, but people who can do fun stuff with you and are game for it and are excited to be with you. So we are I was hoping to keep it 45 minutes, but again, all of you share so many gems and it's just so valuable. I'm glad it was a small group because we have 20 speakers, and if it was 20 speakers joining us, like, damn, we may only be able to say hello. So this is so beautiful, and again, all of you shared so many wonderful words of wisdom. This will actually stay live on all the platforms, and then all of you can also share it in your group. So on your LinkedIn profiles, or if you have whatever Facebook groups, and so yeah. So, and for people who've joined us, let us know in the comments, whether it's watching it live or later, what your experience have been with belonging and community, and also introduce yourself. I want to thank our speakers. We will be going live again the day before the summit. I don't know if all of you will be able to join us, but hopefully you and some of the others, so there'll be more opportunities, and we will have networking events. And I just encourage Naveen, Solvega, Isabel, again, if you want to share anything additional, you can do so in the comments of the LinkedIn page on, you want to add anything else. But just want to thank you all for making the time to join me today. As I mentioned earlier, Naveen and Janine were on my panel discussion yesterday, which will stream live during the summit. And I hope everyone will join us for the summit. The videos are available for 24 hours after we stream them. So you get to watch them. And we have a Facebook group where you can connect with people. You can connect on our LinkedIn page. I'm going to have each of you share one last thing, anything you want to say, just one, like very quick, just a round robin. Go ahead.
Gosh, that's like putting us right on the spot, isn't it?
I want to give you guys the last word. I want to give you the opportunity because I was talking so much. I'll give you the last word. Anything at all.
I'll just second what you were saying about joining the summit, because just from yesterday's conversation and today's conversation and the interactions we've had on the LinkedIn group, I have to say that I'm super excited just to hear what everyone has to say. So much knowledge, so much experience, so much diversity. I think the conversations are going to be super enriching, and I think can really inspire people's life to make positive change and look at things in a different way. So please do join the summit.
Great. I'll go. So I just had a thought before when we were talking about making friends. So I'll say this is my last thing, is that what I've found is it's easier to make friends with expats, immigrants, or people who have moved to your local area probably than it is to make friends with people who are well entrenched and already have a lifetime worth of friends, because people who are new to the area are also looking to make friends, so they're more open to the connections.
Yeah, I want to share one thing about what Naveen, you said earlier about finding belonging within yourself. And I think it's such a profound wisdom in all of this, in all the belonging questions. And I'm excited because the talk I'm going to give around the Enneagram is one of the ways to find belonging within yourself, to really get the keys of who you are. And so I'm excited to speak about it. And I'm so grateful to be here. Like, Naina, you are a gem. Like, I'm even moved to say that. You are such a gem, such a gift about, bringing together powerful, amazing women like you, and your generosity of spirit and bringing us here and wanting us to be in the limelight. Yeah, I'm really very grateful for you. I'm so glad I'm part of this community and this summit.
I definitely feel very, very grateful the same way, because I recently have realized that I've attended a lot of human resources conferences, and I never planned to submit it because I felt like, there are other people who are better speakers. And now, like, every time I submitted, my proposals got rejected because, we compare my proposal of native speakers and doesn't look so good, and I'm not as good speaker. And then suddenly Naina reaches out to me. She doesn't even know me. And she says, are you interested to be in the summit? And I say, yes, I am, But it's really amazing that you just invited me out of the blue. And I cannot tell how I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I hope that, my speech will inspire others to help somebody to go through transition, and also to make organizations more inclusive, because, that even if I live in Washington, D.C., such a diverse city in the world, those conversations do not happen frequently. In many HR groups, I still like the only immigrant. So hopefully it opens the doors for other conversations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Isabel. You almost made me cry too. So I don't even know how we connected, but I'm so glad we did. And I have had the opportunity to meet Isabel because she used to faithfully come for my all my in-person events. And Isabel and I think both our brand colors are red. I see Janine wearing red, so she'd land up with a red coat or jacket. In fact, I'm no today I'm not, but yes, I was wearing the red coat that you have. But yeah, no, it's nice, and I hope to meet all of you in person soon. And so yeah, what I was telling Janine and Naveen yesterday was I handpick my speakers. I get a lot of people asking me if they can speak, but each of you, I have Isabel, I'm not sure we connected, Janine and Naveen too, but I somehow we were connected on social media, or maybe I Googled you guys. I don't know, but I found you all. And Solvega, I found you because you were very active on LinkedIn, and Solvega kept sending me these. I don't encourage people to send to me DMs because it's with all the people on LinkedIn sending you stuff, but somehow I don't know, there was something very genuine about your DMs that you were sending me, and I was like, let me check her out. And then I was like, okay, I need to invite her to be a speaker. So, and this is what I want to encourage everyone. Part of the summit theme is also empowerment. And if you want to be empowered, you have to put yourself out there. That's how I found is it all the 4 speakers here. I found all of you because you were putting yourself out there very generously, giving of your time and expertise. I mean, I know Janine, you run that Facebook group for free, and all of you have done stuff, and you're even joining the summit. There's no speaker fees, but you all want to give back, because I had some speakers who I reached out and they we only do paid summits. And it's if when you add value, it opens the door to new opportunities, and everything doesn't have to be paid, because sometimes when you give of yourself, you will get those opportunities down the line. And I mean, this I like also spotlighting women, because I feel, especially expat women who have expertise, people will, as Solvega you said, people will be inspired by listening to you. Maybe they say, oh, I've had her expat journey, or I look like her. Or, and Janine, you mentioned about moving to another country at 58 and starting your life from scratch in a way, right? Because that's another thing. I know some ageism is a big deal, and some people feel once they've crossed a certain age, they should just stay put in their country and, not experience something new. So I think that's very powerful too. Don't let age, don't let your accent, your skin color, your religion stop you from moving and putting yourself out there. And, maybe one day you'll be a speaker on my summit. But then again, I pick my speakers. So and it's for those who haven't got selected, not because I don't take it personally, but again, we have a limited number of speakers I can bring on stage, and I have to choose people who I feel will inspire my audience, and also will promote the summit, because sometimes people want to be a speaker, but they never share. So I also look at that. And finally, I want to add that for anyone listening, because when I look at people who could be potential speakers, I see how active they are on their social media platforms, and are they only talking about themselves, or are they also highlighting other people? So that's another thing to keep in mind, right? You have to, it's not just about you. You need to bring other people into the limelight. You need to talk about other people. So just a little bit, I'll get off my soapbox now and just let everyone go. It's late for some of you, but thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to more events like this before the summit, and then of course looking forward to all your presentations and all the other speakers as well at the summit. All right, everyone, thank you. Have a wonderful rest.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Good night.
you.